Finally, it's time for the world to learn the real identity of our boy Jin Woo. And trust me, not a single soul will be able to keep their jaw from dropping after witnessing just 1% of his true power. After dealing with those giant bears, Jin Woo wasted no time recruiting new shadow soldiers for his growing army. Meanwhile, outside the Red Gate, Dong-Su was pacing like a nervous dad, asking how long they'd been inside. The crew tells him it's been 3 hours out, about 3 days in there. Dong-Su immediately assumes Jin Woo's already become bear chap. He starts complaining about wasting his time and getting ready to leave, but then remembers Jin Woo isn't even part of the White Tiger. So, naturally, he starts asking what the heck Jin Woo was doing there in the first place. The manager explains that Jin Woo is a friend and was just curious about the C-rank gate. He didn't think it'd be a problem to let him tag along. But of course, musclehead Dong-Su wasn't buying it. He grabs the manager and starts choking him, demanding to know what kind of prodigy found this time. That's when the guild master steps in, grabbing Dong-Su's arm and telling him to knock it off. Dong-Su, being the drama king he is, throws shade, calling the guild master a small fish compared to himself. Baek wasn't having any of that and started flexing some terrifying energy, forcing Dong-Su to eat his word. The tension explodes. Meanwhile, poor Chul is out in the snow, freezing and clearly traumatized. He stumbles across the corpses of the ice bear and assumes it must have been the ice elves because there's no way those weaklings from the rank igris could have pulled that off. Back at the showdown, Chul steps in before anyone ends up in the hospital. He thanks the two hotheads for holding back because, let's be real, otherwise he'd be the one getting sent to the ER. Chul mentions testing Jin Woo's abilities 2 months ago and confirms he's just an E rank. He also insists that magical beasts killed Dong-Su's brother, but Dong-Su isn't buying, calling it a bedtime store fool. He admits he's just looking for an excuse to kill Jin Woo. Meanwhile, Chul finally stumbles across the rank igris. He's shocked to see them living it up, food and gear, while he's out here losing his whole team to poor resources. He starts flipping out, accusing them of hiding all that stuff from it. In the middle of his meltdown, Chul decides the high-ranking mage must have joined Jin Woo's group because they had better survival resources. Furious, he's ready to wipe them all out, but Jin Woo shows up and casually flicks him across the area like a rag. Jin Woo calmly explains that if anyone's to blame for the mess, it's the leader who decided to split the team. To make things worse, Chul had unknowingly brought trouble straight to their doorstep. Ice elves deactivate their stealth, and the bloodlust in the air is impossible to ignore. When the elf leader starts speaking, Jin Woo surprises himself by suddenly understanding their monster language. Even he's like, wait, when did I learn this? The elf leader reveals one of his subordinates found Jin Woo interested, wanted a fight. But before the guy could even throw hands, Jin Woo decapitated in an instant. The head landed 30 feet away before anyone knew what happened. Jin Woo then moves in on the elf leader, who explains that a voice constantly orders them to kill humans. Strangely enough, that same voice doesn't command them to attack Jin Woo, meaning he's not human. Jin Woo starts piecing things together, realizing that becoming a player might have changed his status as a human. The elf leader tries to strike a deal, saying he'll spare Jin Woo's life if he hands over the human. Jin Woo obviously says nope. The leader, full of confidence, reminds Jin Woo that they're outnumbered, but Jin Woo shuts him up by summoning his shadow army, and suddenly, the odds look a lot less favorable for the elf. Chaos erupts as everyone goes into battle mode. While the elves try sniping at the escaping human, Jin Woo pulls an action movie move, catching arrows mid-air and obliterating the attackers. Jin Woo soon realizes that the elf leader, Beruca, way tougher than expected. Beruca pulls a disappearing dagger trick and nearly lands a fatal blow, but Jin Woo dodges just in time. The elf lands a powerful kick to Jin Woo's gut, but instead of flinching, Jin Woo just grins like a maniac. Out of nowhere, Jin Woo's shadow mages launch a massive fireball straight at Beruca. Meanwhile, Chul finally picks himself up after that humiliating flick and charges at Jin right as Beruca does the same. Of course, Jin Woo saw it coming a mile away and summoned Igris, who wasted no time planting a sword right into the rank A's gut. Even though the dude was a total jerk, he was still pretty strong, so Jin Woo decided to recruit his shadow for the squad. He named him Heir, who wasted no time making himself a nuisance to Beruca. Meanwhile, the rest of the human group was huddled behind a tree, enjoying the show like it was premium cable. Park Hee-jin couldn't help but mutter that if raids were always this chaotic, she would have picked literally any other career. Beruca, the sneaky elf, laughed and said, "One sword's not enough to handle me, huh? Let's bring 2 more into the mix." Clearly, the guy had skill, juggling 3 attackers like he was auditioning for a medieval circuit. But Iron's taunting ability kept pulling Beruca's focus, leaving him open for a sneaky slash from Jin Woo. Realizing his entire elf army had been wiped out by these shadowy nuisances didn't help his mood either. Furious, he lunged at Jin Woo, laughing at how the kid had thrown away his weapon. Cue Jin Woo activating his Thor-like skill, summoning his dagger straight into Beruca's back like it had GPS. Beruca tried to block, but his weapon got obliterated. The shadows swarmed him, hitting from all angles, but somehow the guy tanked it all. That's when Jin Woo turned invisible, slipped behind him, and stuck his dagger where it hurts, announcing, "It's over." Beruca sneered. Don't get cocky. But before he could finish, Iron was already slamming his hammer right into his face. With that final blow, they took down the boss, netting Jin Woo a mountain of XP. But Iron, hyped beyond reason, kept smashing Beruca's lifeless body until Jin Woo had to tell him to chill. The Shadow Army erupted into victory cheers, while Jin Woo made his way to the group, announcing that it was all clear. The portal opened, and the surviving hunters returned, breathing sighs of relief. Outside, Baek was holding on to the hope that Chul had miraculously saved the day. His bubble popped when he saw only the low-rank hunters walk out alive. Baek grabbed Jin Woo, demanding to know what had happened. Jin Woo, clearly over it, told him to ask his guild members instead. Baek pressed on, saying 6 members had gone MIA, and he needed answers. Jin Woo, now fully done, replied, I saved 2 of your guys. The least you can do is say thank you. Baek, realizing he'd poked the wrong bear, stammered an apology. Still, his curiosity got the best of him, so he asked Park what was going on. She shrugged, saying she had no clue, except that Jin Woo had been in a foul mood ever since defeating the boss. That's when Baek realized Jin Woo wasn't your average hunter, and told his manager to recruit him for the guild no matter what. Meanwhile, Jin Woo was frustrated because he couldn't extract Beruca's shadow. He tried 3 times, but the system basically told him, not today, but the next day, Jin Woo met up with Jin-Ho, who showed up dressed like a human disco ball. Before they got back to business, Jin Woo decided to stop by Yi-Han's house. The moment she hopped in the car, she greeted Jin Woo all sweet, leaving Jin-Ho absolutely stunned. And when she casually mentioned she couldn't sleep last night, Jin-Ho immediately got the wrong idea and stammered out, "You know she's underage, right?" Inside the raid, the little heir was shocked by the captain's new ability. He said he didn't remember the guy having a freaking army working for him last time, and it made everyone's job a whole lot easier. But Jin-Ho begged the boss to at least let him mine the crystals so he wouldn't feel completely useless. He got all emotional when a knight came over to bring him the minerals. Then we cut to a pitch-black room with some guy shaking like a leaf, terrified of a huge, long-haired dude telling him to stop screaming. The big guy said to calm down because his friends were just... So he pulled out a translator and explained he was just a human trying to go home. Meanwhile, the 2 guys headed to a steakhouse to celebrate since they'd finally finished all 19 raids in the contract. Now the little heir just needed to pass his test to become a certified guildmaster. After that, Jin Woo mentioned he might go off the grid to avoid certain people. But Jin-Ho, already tipsy from hand sanitizer level alcohol, said if he's annoying, Jin Woo should just say it, and he'll stop. Then, all drunk, he said he considers Jin Woo more family than his actual brother. The 2 shared a drink to seal their brotherly bond. The rich kid got emotional and ordered 300 more steaks for Jin Woo to eat. Meanwhile, that giant monster of a man was locked up and being questioned. He said he was a foreign hunter who got stuck in a gate for 10 years and couldn't escape. And since his English was awful, they were waiting for a translator. So they called in an S-rank hunter to do the interrogation. Of course, they meant Hwang Dong-soo, who was already on a flight back to the United States. All they'd figured out so far was the hunter's name, Il-Hwan Sung. At home, Sung Jin-Woo told his sister he'd be gone for weeks. She teased him, saying he'd been going out a lot lately and asking if he'd found himself a girlfriend. Little did she know the closest thing to that was him getting cozy with her best friend. Finally, our boy returned to the demonic castle. Last time he fought Cerberus, he was level 20, but now he was 3 times stronger and thought it'd be easier this time. He inserted the key and entered the castle. Right away, he got a mission to collect demon soul, and it wouldn't end until he gathered 10,000 soul. But that didn't matter. Even if it were 100,000, he wasn't leaving until he got the items for the life elixir. Meanwhile, at Jin-Ho's mansion, he was trying to convince his dad to let him take over as guildmaster, even though it was supposed to go his brother. The old man started talking about the 3 crazy incidents Jin Woo survived, not to mention the Red Gate raid Jin-Ho didn't even know about. He said Jin-Ho only passed the guild master test because of Jin Woo, and asked if he still thought he deserved to lead the guild. Jin-Ho had excuses ready, but he didn't need them because his dad agreed, with a condition. Since the White Tiger Guild was eager to recruit Jin Woo after the Red Gate, his dad asked if Jin-Ho could bring him in first. Jin-Ho swore he'd make it happen. Back in the demonic castle, Jin Woo had already taken out a bunch of demons, but discovered he couldn't extract their shadows because they were corrupted. After completing the first mission, he earned a pass to the second floor. Tired of walking, he summoned the Ice Bear leader as his mount. But before Jin Woo could give any orders, the Coca-Cola bear charged into the demons, trampling everyone. Jin Woo named him Tank. Over at the White Tiger Guild, they had a pretty fancy area. Cha recalled asking Baek why they were keeping the flying ant information secret. Baek explained it was an order from the association to avoid scaring the public. In the castle, Jin Woo worried it might be an S-rank dungeon, but the demons seemed more like B-rank best. He noted that the demons increased in number and strength with each floor, which helped him level up faster. He started imagining how strong he'd become by the final floor, and knew he had to collect those 10,000 some souls before running out of food. Then he ran into an army of Orc King knights who could have used a diet plan. He summoned his army to face the first boss, Vulcan the Greedy, who was waiting on the 50th floor. Manager An and Park Hee-jin went to Jin Woo's house to offer him a job, but Jin Woo wasn't interested in a 9-to-5 and had already left town. The manager looked up Jin Woo's record and saw he'd vanished downtown. No one knew where he went. By that time, Jin Woo was explaining strategies to his soldier. He told him to handle the minions while he focused on the boss. The mages started strong with explosions, Igris cleaned up the weaklings, and Jin Woo, now with higher intelligence, summoned even more shadow soldiers. He wondered how long that pastel lord would just sit there. As if on cue, the boss teleported and slammed his staff into the battlefield. Jin Woo punched him hard, sending the big guy flying across the castle. Even Jin Woo was surprised by his strength, but the boss got back up and activated buffs just like Cerberus did. Jin Woo borrowed Iron's shield to block the boss's heavy strikes. When he found an opening, he threw the shield and tried to attack from behind. But the boss predicted his move, forcing Jin Woo to use Dominator's touch to dodge. He realized the boss's glowing eyes were the weak spot. The guy moved like a super athlete, defying physics, so Jin Woo climbed a building to lure him up. Leaping into the smoke, he delivered a precise slash to the boss's carotid artery. It's clear our boy has a thing for chopping heads. Another one for his collection. At the interrogation, Dong-Su walked in, calling the emo guy a monster. Il-hwan said he wasn't and offered to take a DNA test if needed. Dong-Su, annoyed at being pulled from his fun, asked Il-hwan what he knew about gates and magical beasts. Il-hwan said their knowledge was just the tip of the iceberg and warned that a catastrophic power had awakened. He said his mission was to stop it, but Dong-Su wasn't buying it and joked. Hwan warned that their hunter army wouldn't be enough and that not even their flashy S-rank hunters could stop what was coming. That the monster has a wife and 2 kids, and when he mentions the name of the son, Sung Jin Woo, he gives a death glare that could freeze hell over. The bald bastard grins and says his son is already a thing of the past. He adds that if Il-hwan wants to say anything, he'll have to wait until they meet in hell. That was it. The dad was done playing around. Back in the demonic castle, Jin Woo and his squad were wrecking the place. He asked if that horned boss was impressed by the strength of his soldiers. And once again, Jin Woo chopped off the boss's lovely head, leveling up after defeating the soul guy. Outside, it was total chaos. The fire department had been called, and the scene looked like the aftermath of a disaster movie. No one expected a rank S hunter battle to end like this, with the almighty Hwang Dong-Su utterly humiliated in the blink of an eye. Mess with someone else's kid, huh, genius? Jin Woo, out of food, decided it was time to call it a day. In just 1 week, the kid had climbed to the 75th floor of an S-rank dungeon, and he scored some sick loot like the giant's earrings and the skeleton's necklace, which boosted all his stats and came with insane buffs. He also got a greed orb, which wasn't much use to him, but would double the firepower of his magical soldier. Then there was a cursed loot box containing another key. But of course, this cursed key came with zero explanation about where to use it. What mattered most was that he'd obtained a world tree fragment and spring water from the Echo Forest. Now he was just 1 item away from completing the life elixir to save his mom from that illness. Jin Woo promised that next time he'd finish this dungeon for good. Our boy Jin Woo realized he only needed 1 more item to complete the elixir of life. But to get it, he'd need to get way stronger before heading back to that demonic castle. The problem? He was still classified as a rank E and couldn't join the high-level raids. So he decided it was time to stop pretending to be weak and went to get his rank reassessed. At the assessment building, a scout from the White Tiger Guild was watching, hoping to find some talent to recruit. But all he saw were weaklings, until Jin Woo walked in. That's when he froze and called the guild master immediately. Even Baek was surprised when he heard Jin Woo came to reassess his rank. While waiting in line, some nervous newbie was sweating bullets, terrified of getting a low rank and not being able to pay his bills. Another guy tried to calm him down, saying, "Relax, bro. If you at least hit rank D, those smaller guild scouts will be all over you." Finally, it was Jin Woo's turn. Inside, he handed over his info: social security, mom's credit card, Bitcoin wallet password, the whole deal. The lady at the desk joked, "Another frustrated rank E who can't accept he's a loser, huh?" She told him to place his hand on the black crystal, but when he did, the machine threw an error. She thought it was just a glitch and tried again, but it failed a second time. Starting to freak out, she called her boss, who came in to run the assessment himself. And guess what? Error again. That's when the guy started trembling, because he realized it wasn't the machine. It was Jin Woo. His bow hour level was off the charts. The boss whispered, "This kid's one of the top 10 in the country. He's a rank S." Meanwhile, in a nearby park, Woo-Jin Chul was chatting with a red-haired nerd about the mysterious hunter who helped at Red Gate. Jin Chul swore it wasn't Hwang Dong-Su, even though some people thought it was. Choi, curious as ever, asked, "If it wasn't him, who was it?" But Redhead admitted he didn't stay till the end, so he couldn't say for sure. He did suspect Jin Woo though, but decided to keep quiet until he had solid proof. Just then, they noticed a commotion at the assessment building. Sounded like some hunter was throwing a tantrum about their rank. Chul decided to check it out, and Choi tagged along, saying he was curious too. Back at the building, the boss had to postpone Jin Woo's assessment because their detector couldn't handle his power. Everyone there was losing it because a delay like that basically screamed rank S. No one had ever seen someone break the detector before, but their excitement was cut short when someone unexpected arrived. It was the leader of the Hunters Guild, the biggest guild in South Korea. People were stunned, whispering, "Why is the Supreme Soldier himself here?" Jin Woo immediately recognized him as Choi Jong-in, a guy whose fire magic was so insane he could burn down the entire building in seconds. With a piercing gaze, Choi said there was no need for any fancy detectors or a 3-day wait. "Without a doubt," he declared, "this kid is a rank S." So the guy waltzed in all polite, introduced himself as the leader of the biggest guild in the country, and personally invited Jin Woo to join his squad. But Jin Woo, he straight up walked past him, saying he was busy. Everyone, including Four Eyes, was left standing there with their jaws on the floor. I mean, who in their right mind would snub one of the top-tier guys in the country like that? Choi Jong-in asked his slick-haired assistant if he somehow forgot to introduce him properly. But by the time they looked again, Jin Woo had vanished into thin air without making a sound. Choi smirked and said he'd make a damn good assassin. Things got even crazier when Guildmaster Baek stormed completely out of breath. Choi noticed how far the White Tiger Guild headquarters was and joked, "Did you morph into a tiger to get here that fast?" Still, Baek arrived late to the party. Choi assumed Baek already knew everything from the start, and this confirmed his suspicion that Jin Woo was the mystery guy who saved White Tiger Guild during the Red Gate incident. Baek was equally shocked to see Choi there and grumbled, "Out of everyone to compete for the kid, it had to be that fiery-haired bastard." Meanwhile, in the background, some chubby dude was celebrating his rank C achievement. Later that night, Jin Woo visited his mom in the hospital, silently hoping for a miracle to wake her from her coma. He promised her, "Just hang on a little longer. I'll find a way to save you." Out of nowhere, Chul showed up and asked if Jin Woo was the one who defeated those monsters in the double dungeon that day. Chul admitted that Jin Woo had taught him not to always trust his gut instincts. Jin Woo casually replied, "We meet again," and Chul started rambling a bunch of stuff that Jin Woo barely listened to. But he perked up when Chul mentioned the president of the Hunters Association was here to see him. And stepping out of the shadows came the old dude introduced himself as Go Gun-hee and invited Jin Woo for a chat. He congratulated him on becoming a rank S hunter and said there was no need to wait for the reassessment because everyone already knew the result. The old man admitted that the Hunters Association didn't have the fame or fat paychecks of big guild. He explained that their top guy, Director Woo, was only a rank A hunter. Still, he told Jin Woo it would be incredible if he joined the association and promised him a prestigious position. Jin Woo was confused, so the old man broke it down. The 5 biggest guilds were constantly competing, and if Jin Woo joined one of them, it'd tip the balance of power. That's why he was inviting him to join the association, a neutral 6th power that kept the balance in check. Jin Woo thought it was a solid offer. It sounded like job security. Plus, he'd work under Korea's first ever rank S hunter, a total legend who didn't even look like he was pushing 80. But Jin Woo still turned him down. The president figured Jin Woo just wanted the big buck, but he was surprised when Jin Woo said he wanted to fight. "My place is in the dungeon," Jin Woo declared. His resolve so strong it left the old man moved. Jin Woo excused himself, saying his little sister was home alone waiting. The old man sighed, canceled all his plans, and told Director Woo, "Let's hit the bar." On his way out, Jin Woo muttered that he didn't accept the offer because the association mostly handled rank D and E gates. He needed to get stronger, fast, to save his mom. No time to waste. The next day, Dong-Soo woke up in the hospital, completely wrecked. The deputy guildmaster asked him if Il-hwan Sung was really a magic beast, disguised as a human. Dong-Soo scoffed, "Did that freak look human to you?" The deputy mentioned that HQ was tracking Il-hwan, but doubted they could catch someone even America's strongest hunter couldn't handle. Dong-Soo vividly remembered the guy stepping on him and warning, "Stay away from my family or you'll wish for death 1,000 times over." Fueled by rage, Dong-Soo was already plotting his revenge. Meanwhile, Jin Woo was browsing for artifacts to boost his power, but quickly realized they were so expensive he'd have to sell both kidneys to afford half of one. He considered selling that orb of greed he picked up, but worried about explaining how a supposed rank E hunter had something that could only come from high-level gates. Then, he saw a job ad hiring for a mining team and thought, well, maybe this could work. Over at the association building, the president was digging into more info about the kid. He found out that just 4 months ago, Jin Woo looked like a total rookie. The guy was impressed that Jin Woo had survived for so long before awakening, considering he used to get clapped by even the weakest goblins. Chul mentioned that the kid's been paying for his mom's eternal sleep treatment and his sister's college tuition. One record showed Jin Woo even joined a raid team from the Hunters Guild. The old man assumed Jin Woo was just after the money, as expected. expected. But he was surprised to see Jin Woo joined the mining team instead of the attack team, which is where the real cash is. And there he was, looking like a construction worker, ready to get his hands dirty. First, the attack team went in, led by Four Eye. The guy launched a fireball that fried an entire group of chupacabras in seconds. He was so overpowered that a squad of tanks had to block his own attack. After clearing everything except the boss, the attack team called it a day. Jin Woo could tell right away that this Choi guy was a beast. He made sure to suppress his presence so he wouldn't get noticed. Right behind Four Eyes was the vice master of the Hunters Guild, Hae-In, aka the ballerina. Jin Woo was amazed by her aura, but she wasn't far behind, noticing a strong presence she thought could only belong to President Go. Jin Woo had to max out his stealth mode to avoid being detected by her superhuman sense of smell. That's when the mining crew rolled in. They worked hard to gather all the crystals and monster carcasses, but Jin Woo, he only had eyes for the dungeon boss. The boss radiated power even greater than Vulcan or Metis from the demon castle. Jin Woo couldn't wait to go one-on-one with this rank A beast. Out of nowhere, he overheard the crew gossiping about how they brought a rank E to work. Meanwhile, some wannabe tough guy bumped into him trying to flex. But one icy glare from Jin Woo made the dude nearly wet himself. Everyone started questioning if this guy was really a rank E because he looked way too strong for that. When it was time for a break, the whole crew rushed off to eat. But not Jin Woo. He kept mining, saying he was almost done. Once he was finally alone, he bolted straight into the dungeon at full speed. He figured he had an hour-long break, which was plenty of time to sneak a peek at the boss. Jin Woo knew he couldn't kill the monster because that would close the portal and cost the Hunters Guild a fortune, but he just couldn't resist the temptation. He had already summoned his dagger when Cha caught him red-handed. She asked, "What the hell are you doing here?" And the boy was so surprised that he couldn't even respond. Then he went all off the chain and said he got lost and ended up here by accident. She told him to back off because this was the boss's room, and Jin Woo realized she was seriously strong for catching him off guard. But she already thought he was nuts because she was sure he had a weapon in his hand. When he passed by her to leave, the girl nearly had a heart attack. She made him wait and started sniffing him like a hound. She noticed he didn't smell like the usual eau de dumpster that other hunters reek of, and she was ready to pounce on him. But then she checked his badge. He was only rank E. She wondered if this kid was actually fragrant just because he's low rank. Total Narnia logic, right? Back with the mining crew, the guy said he was super lucky to get lost and bump into Miss Cha, the gal on patrol, who was supposedly checking on the boss. Meanwhile, Jin Woo had thought she was following him all along. One geeky dude chimed in that she can literally smell a certain stench on these hunters. And sure enough, most of them reek like onions. That's why she's always clutching a tissue to her nose, because she can't breathe near those stinky guys. Then Jin Woo started spacing out, wondering if this was some sort of system glitch, kind of like that time Beruca said he couldn't hear a voice ordering him to kill him. Later, Jin Woo went to get his mission payout, and everyone was drooling over him, because thanks to the boss, they wrapped up the job 2 hours early, like a human excavator. The boss was so impressed, he even asked if Jin Woo wanted to work for him. Jin Woo thanked him, but said he had other gigs lined up. Then the boss asked if he'd join tomorrow's raid. The kid was shocked that the hunters were pulling another rank A raid the next day. Only this time they're rolling with the backup team, and they're probably the only guild in Korea that can split their squad into 2 teams to close rank A portals. Jin Woo even asked what time he needed to show up tomorrow. The boss got all hyped and said he'd even double his salary, which is more than fair for someone working for $5, right? That night, the Hunter Cha called the guild to ask about a guy named Sung Jin Woo who'd been in the mining crew. She said he must have gone off the rails, claiming he got lost earlier, and she was worried he might be a spy from another guild. But we all know she was really just trying to stalk our hero, right? And she freaked out when the boss mentioned that Master Choi had ordered research on that same guy. But the association locked his files down so no one could access them, which is super for a rank this low. The kid even tried to ask a question, but the girl hung up on him and went to bed, wondering why Jin Woo was so different, since he was the first person she'd met who actually smelled good. And here's the secret, buddy. Over at the mining crew, Jin Woo suddenly remembered his first ever raid party. Meanwhile, everyone else was calling him to lunch because the guy was basically a hero at this point. Out of nowhere, a knight from the attack squad pulled up, asking if they could borrow someone from the mining team since their shield bearer didn't show up. Of course, the miners weren't about to risk their necks for nothing. Besides, They were already drowning in work, but the knight kept insisting, saying they'd even throw in a little extra pay. Too bad the Minecraft squad wasn't about to put their lives on the line for pocket change. Since nobody else wanted to go, our boy Jin Woo decided to volunteer. That's when the panic set in. Everyone started freaking out because an E-rank hunter tagging along with an A-rank raid team was straight up insanity. They were all like, "Bro, you're way too young to become Monster Chow," but Jin Woo figured he'd learn a lot just by watching. The squad leader introduced himself as Sun Ki-hoon and was absolutely baffled when he saw Jin Woo carrying a 300-kilogram backpack like it was a school bag. This portal was even bigger than yesterday, but the team told him to chill. If it were actually dangerous, they wouldn't have sent the backup squad. Yeah, just like that one time with the double dungeon where almost everyone got a one-way ticket to the afterlife. Even though this was just the reserve team, they were still stacked. 11 A-rank hunters and 6 B-rank. Finally, it was time to go in. But for some reason, Jin Woo was getting that same weird gut feeling he had right before stepping into the red gate. Inside, a beautiful mage told him not to be scared since they'd protect him. Especially her, because she was an A-rank healer and could patch him up if he got hurt. She even started reciting some old saying, "If the mage gets hit, it's the tank's fault. If the healer gets hit, it's the attack squad's fault. But if the shield bearer gets hit, everybody screwed up." Basically, Jin Woo would only get attacked if the whole squad got wiped out. Ki-hoon, meanwhile, was hyped because this was his first time leading Group B. If he could pull this off, he might get promoted to full-time leader. Out of nowhere, a noise echoed through the dungeon, and the whole team immediately snapped into formation. Jin Woo was impressed. Nobody even needed to be told what to do. This was the power of an A-rank squad. Then, a pack of coyotes showed up, and the team wasted no time slicing them to pieces. Honestly, if they struggled with this, it would have been embarrassing. Jin Woo soloed 300 of these things back in episode 2, while still being a total weakling. The mage told everyone to duck because she was about to light the place up, and in a flash, the big bad wolves were gone. But the squad was confused. Why the hell were coyotes inside an A-rank dungeon? They were only C-rank monsters, way too weak to be here. That's when Jin Woo noticed something strange. These weren't just any wild mutts. They had collar marks on their necks, meaning someone had domesticated. And that's when the real demons of this dungeon decided to crash the party. A whole squad of high orcs popped up, and the gang immediately started sweating bullets. One of them chucked a spear at light speed, nearly shattering the leader's shield. The orcs rushed in, and the Red Knight tried to block them, but they just used him as a stepping stone and went straight for the mages. One of them caught a fireball right in the face like it was nothing, but turns out their magic resistance was built different, so it barely left a scratch. The cat girl managed to hold one down with some magic whips, but the guy was a tank, and she could only keep him locked for 5 seconds max. The mage was like, "That's all I need," and summoned 2 massive fire soldiers to attack. Only problem? He used up all his mana, so now he was just a sitting duck. The martial artist chick tried to drop some Karate Kid move, but the orc hit her with a full-body tackle that sent her flying straight into the wall. Things got even worse when they started getting surrounded, and Ki-hoon ordered them to split into 3 groups. Even though this was an A-rank dungeon, no one was expecting 20 freaking high orcs to spawn out of nowhere. That was not what the portal scanner showed, and it didn't take long for the first unlucky soul to lose an arm. The mage chick tried to trap the orc while the healer flexed her OP skills and straight up regrew the guy's arm like it was no big deal. But the orc snapped the bindings like they were paper and teleported behind her, about to send her straight to the respawn screen. Meanwhile, Mr. Backpack himself had mysteriously vanished, and out of nowhere, the orc started choking midair. Turns out Jin Woo was using stealth mode and went full ninja, slicing up the beast from the inside out. The healer had zero clue what just happened. Then another orc randomly lost his footing because a deep cut suddenly appeared on his ankle, right before Ki-hoon finished the job and split him in half. At that point, the whole squad was confused. Why was this fight suddenly so easy? That's when they realized Jin Woo was secretly weakening the orcs one by one without anyone noticing. A few of them even started sensing his presence, so he just yeeted them off the map before they could start swinging at the air like crazy people. The martial artist chick took the opportunity to body an orc with some premium grade hands, while the leader carved through their boss like he was slicing butter. The dude hit the ground hard. As soon as the battle was over, everyone checked for injury, because as long as you were still breathing, the healers could patch you up like nothing happened. The healer reported to the leader that one of the high orcs randomly started choking out of nowhere. Ki-hoon thought it was the mage chick's doing, but she denied it. No way her skills could pull off something that wild. Then the mage suggested that if someone could do that, it'd have to be someone outside the squad. She was the only one who figured out that Jin Woo had been using stealth stealth mode the whole time to secretly assassinate the monsters. But since she could tell he had a reason for keeping his real power under wraps, she decided to let it slide, for now. After catching their breath, the squad started debating whether to retreat. After all, they barely survived fighting these high orcs, and who knows what else was lurking ahead. But Kai-Hoon really wanted to finish the dungeon so he could get promoted to official squad leader. Jin Woo could tell the guy was dead set on completing the raid, but since he genuinely cared about his team's safety, he decided to pull back. The whole squad was sweating, thinking he was about to say, "Nah, let's keep going." Only one slight issue. When they tried heading back, a cursed barrier suddenly materialized, blocking their way out. They immediately turned to the mage chick like, "Yo, you got a spell for this?" She was like, "I can, but I'm gonna need time." The real issue. Some ridiculously strong monster had to be the one who cast this spell. So, yeah, retreating was definitely the right move. Because if they had pushed forward, they would have been wiped out for sure. But when she tried to break the barrier, she immediately started coughing up strawberry jam, and the other mages looked like they were about to pass out. When they looked back, there were 60 high orcs standing there, ready to breathe down their necks like some creeps in a dark alley. And if they almost got deleted by 20, imagine 3 times that. The squad leaders locked eyes, and the biggest orc stepped up, yelling straight into Ki-Hoon's face with breath so bad it could melt steel beams. Dude was talking in monster gibberish, and obviously, no one understood a thing. But then, plot twist, the boss orc must have taken some Duolingo lessons because he suddenly switched to human language. Ki-Hoon asked if he was the one who put up the magic barrier, and the guy straight up flexed, "Damn right I did. I'm none other than the great and powerful Orc Shaman." And then he added, "And your weak little human spells ain't got nothing on mine, so don't even bother." The shaman gave them 2 options, get obliterated now or follow him. And since they weren't complete idiots, they obviously went with option 2. Ki-Hoon whispered to the squad that they'd pull a surprise attack on the boss as soon as they got close enough. Even if they couldn't take him down, it should be enough to break the barrier. Then he turned to Jin Woo and told him to run for his life the second the barrier dropped and get the real strike team over here. But Jin Woo, being Jin Woo, was like, "Yeah, and by the time they get here, you guys will already be turned into mashed potatoes." But Ki-Hoon just hit him with that professional soldier mindset, saying their job was to close the portal, not to survive. That's why they get paid the big bucks. Then the healer pulled Jin Woo aside and asked him to deliver a message to her family if he made it out alive. She told him this wasn't his fight, so there was no reason for him to risk his life. But Jin Woo just took the letter and smiled. "I'll hold on to that, but I won't be needing to deliver it." Meanwhile, outside, Cha was pacing around, looking for Jin Woo, wondering if he was finally done playing Minecraft in the mining crew. The guild leader walked up to her and was like, "Hey, aren't you supposed to be off today?" She ignored him and asked if he'd seen a hunter named Sung Jin Woo around. And the second he mentioned that Jin Woo joined as a shield bearer, she froze. Inside the dungeon, the squad finally reached the boss room. And oh boy, it was straight up chaos. Hundreds of high orcs, plus a bunch of warrior-type monsters who looked like they just walked out of God of War. But the worst part? The boss himself, an absolute demon of a monster, standing there, staring them down like fresh meat and greeting them with, "Welcome, humans. I've been expecting you." The Hunter Cha was already saying that an E-rank hunter volunteering for an A-rank dungeon was straight up insanity. Now she was sure he had a weapon in the boss room yesterday. She said she was going into the portal, and the chief asked if she wanted backup, but she told him to chill. It was personal business. Then she realized she forgot her sword and asked if anyone had a spare weapon. The chief handed her a rock pickaxe, and she was like, "You got anything better? Maybe a sword, a spear?" But yeah, asking a mining crew for combat weapons? Not happening. So she gave the pickaxe back, saying she'd be fine. The chief hit her with the classic, "You sure you want to walk in there empty-handed?" And she regretted her life choices immediately. Meanwhile, in the boss room, the vibe was terrifying. The squad was already shaking, thinking that if all those superior orcs got out, the city would be wiped off the map in 5 minutes. That meant they had to take down the boss. But even the 4 guards around him looked scary enough to haunt your nightmare. The soldiers were just waiting for the signal to jump the shaman all at once. Then the Orc King took off his mask and asked if the humans were scared of him. Did he really need an answer? They were out here looking like they were about to have an accident on the spot. Ki-Hoon somehow found his courage and asked why they even brought them here when the 60 orcs from before were already overkill. The Orc King, he just laughed, said it was for fun, and that they were going to smash their heads one by one for entertainment. Then Mid-monologue, he suddenly noticed someone odd among the human. Ki-hoon, meanwhile, was losing his mind, screaming that they were just that bastard's plaything. So he gave the order to attack, but nobody moved. They were so scared, they might as well have been statues. The leader decided to charge in alone, but the boss summoned a magic ice spike and launched him across the room. Then he straight up called the guy an idiot, used gravity magic, and started playing catch with his head against the ground. And just when he was about to spike him into the abyss, someone stepped in to save him. It was Jin Woo, telling that this dungeon belonged to the Hunter Guild, and he shouldn't be messing around here. But since the whole squad was about to get wiped out, he asked if he could just delete all the monsters in the room. One of the orcs tried sneaking up behind him, but this time he was the one getting bounced around like a ping pong, Jin Woo asked, and Ki-hoon was basically begging him to save them all. The Orc King said he was pretty strong for a mere human, but he asked how long Jin Woo thought he'd last against all of them. Jin Woo said he'd never felt an energy this strong, and the boss was already feeling himself. But the kid hit him with the, "Oh yeah, this fight's gonna be brutal, just for you guys." Then he summoned his shadow army, stronger than ever. Outside the portal, Inspector Chul pulled up in his fancy limo, and the miners were completely lost. Slicked back hair dude wanted to know why the hell Jin Woo spent 2 days working there as a miner. He asked the chief where Jin Woo was, and at this point, that was the second time today someone had asked him that. That dude with the perma-scared face, the one who tried to intimidate Jin Woo before, said he knew something was off about that kid. Bro got scared so bad, he thought his soul was about to get evicted. Then the chief spilled the beans. Jin Woo had joined the attack squad as a volunteer tank, and Inspector Chul was standing there like, what in the actual hell is this kid thinking? They asked if Jin Woo had killed anyone or something, and Chul was like, guess we'll find out in tomorrow's headlines. Out of nowhere, a massive energy explosion nearly flattened everyone. Inside the portal, Cha was trying to figure out how Ki-hoon's team managed to take down so many superior orc, but she said that if that energy belonged to the boss, none of them were making it out alive. Back in the boss room, the Orc King was straight up clowning Jin Woo, saying he wanted to take on his mighty army with those wimpy little soldiers. Then the kid hit him with a, underestimate them, and y'all are getting erased. He activated Monarch's domain, boosting his shadow soldier's strength by 50%. He got that skill after climbing 70 floors in the demon castle, and this time, they were built different. The mages couldn't even comprehend it. These guys could barely summon 2 soldiers, and here was some random human with an energy level off the charts. Then the Orc King gave the signal, and the Bacon Brigade charged straight into battle. Iron tried trash-talking the Orcs, but they were too OP, and it flopped. So he just went full Thor mode and hammer-smashed those bastards into oblivion. Igris? Bro was on demon time, slicing through 30 orcs in the blink of an eye. But even they couldn't compare to the real monster, Sung Jin Woo, who was out there treating this like recess at the playground. The squad was watching like, bro fights just like Vice Leader Cha, and they were all wondering, why the hell did he hide that he was this strong? Except for Igris, Iron, and Tank. The rest of the shadows were basically at a B-rank hunter level, so Jin Woo had to wipe out as many orcs as possible before his mana ran out. Out of nowhere, the boss dropped the Dragon Fire Anthem and wiped out almost all of Jin Woo's shadow soldiers. He called them useless little puppets, but Jin Woo hit him with a, better watch yourself, bud, because his soldiers would keep respawning as long as he had mana. The boss tried dropping an iceberg on the protagonist's head, and before Jin Woo could even react, dude was already eating a full magic combo. The Orc King screamed that he'd keep obliterating those shadows until Jin Woo's mana ran dry. Meanwhile, the weaklings were running for their lives to avoid getting caught in the crossfire, and with all that magic flying around, Jin Woo couldn't even get close to the boss. Outside, the association measured the portal level and realized it was way stronger than expected, so they ordered reinforcements ASAP. Back inside, the Orc King was dying laughing, saying the kid must be running out of mana. But who gets the last laugh, huh? Because unlike in his class change quest, here Jin Woo could chug as many mana potions as he wanted, and that's when things got real fun. Jin Woo straight up extracted the shadows from all the defeated superior orcs. Then he looked the Orc King dead in the eyes and said, "You're next, buddy." And of course, that set the boss completely off. Dude was about to ask if Jin Woo was that guy, but the moment he tried to say Shadow Monarch, the system hit him with a mental blue screen of death. Bro's brain was hard crashing, so instead, he sent his generals into battle, ordering them to bring back the humans' heads. Over at the Hunters Guild HQ, Choi got the news about what was happening. He said Ki-hoon's team should be more than enough to handle a portal like that, but just in case, he ordered his assistant to gather the strongest hunters in the guild, and if necessary, they'd even ask other guilds for help. Back in the boss room, the 4 strongest orc warriors charged in, and the first one immediately got whooped by iron. Igris was out here dueling 2 at the same time, to the point where he had to drop his sword, but the blade zoomed right back into the master's hands. Tank wanted in on the action too. He slapped an orc so hard it basically got deleted. Jin Woo smirked and said, "Looks like my generals are stronger than yours, huh?" The attack squad was about to step in, but the Orc King activated the Hymn of Agony, paralyzing, blinding, and locking them in place. Then he smirked and said, "Side characters don't belong on the main stage." And now, he was about to show everyone what happens when you mess with the Great Kargalan. He unleashed all his magic on Jin Woo, but that stuff shattered instantly. And our protagonist just smirked, saying he's immune to such weak curses. He summoned his mages to destroy that annoying iceberg, and with the Orb of Avarice, they became even stronger. A fireball pierced through the shield and exploded right in that bastard's face. And you already know, that made him furious. Meanwhile, Cha arrived in the middle of the chaos, rocking her mighty pickaxe, and she couldn't believe how many soldiers Jin Woo had summoned. She sprinted over to the attack squad like, "What the hell is going on?" But even they couldn't explain it. Kargalan, on the other hand, was done playing. Dude combined 300 spells at once and vowed to crush that kid like an insect. He stomped down like a colossal titan, but Jin Woo just scoffed, saying he's got bad memories with giant enemy. Bro was just throwing salt in the wound at this point. First, the boss launched a massive fireball. Then, just for good measure, he launched 50 more. They wiped out both the shadow soldiers and the superior orc. The boss smirked and asked, "Are you starting to regret it, little human?" But before he could blink, Jin Woo was already on top of him, shoving a dagger straight into his eye, and he hit him with the ultimate disrespect. The bigger you get, the easier you are to hit. Then he really rubbed it in, saying a mere shaman like him was no match for an assassin. And let's be real, Jin Woo ain't just any assassin either. Channeling the spirit of Indiana Jones, Jin Woo dodged every single attack. Then he sniped 2 daggers that broke the boss's defense and chained him up with a castle chain. He used Kargalan's own strength to yank him into the ground like a ragdoll. And lucky for us, this fight even had a VIP audience, because the Association's inspector finally pulled up to witness the spectacle. He said they came to help, but looks like they won't be needing to anymore. Cha, meanwhile, was watching with sparkling eyes, saying, "This is the strength of an elite hunter, not some rank E-scrub." Then she asked, "Who even is this guy?" And even Chul didn't have an answer. Jin Woo just smirked and said, "Once a mage loses his guardians, he's finished." And right on cue, the Orc King started panicking, screaming that there's no way he could lose in this body. Dude started rampaging, throwing his own soldiers all over the place. But then, they slammed his face straight into the ground, and that was game over. The last thing he saw was his own former general burying a sword deep into his chest. And just like that, Jin Woo had officially cleared the dungeon boss, racking up tons of XP and a whole bunch of loot. And even though he soloed everything, he figured it wouldn't look too good if he just kept all the loot for himself. But one thing he definitely wasn't sharing: extracting the boss's shadow. And the crowd, they couldn't believe their eyes. That massive monster that had been terrorizing everyone was now kneeling before this kid. When it was time to name him, Jin Woo straight up forgot what the dude was called. So, he just went with Tusk. And this was the first time he had ever scored a shadow soldier with elite knight rank, which was more than deserved for an A-rank dungeon boss. Not to mention those superior orcs were way stronger than his usual soldiers. Jin Woo was so locked in collecting shadows that he didn't even notice Inspector Woo was standing right there. Of course, the second everyone snapped out of it, the questions started flying. But the chief stepped in real quick to say that Hunter Sung Jin Woo's situation was top secret. He told everyone to keep their mouths shut about what they saw today. The assistants were going to escort him outside, and Chul asked everyone to cooperate and make sure his exit was low-key. But before he could leave, Ki-hoon spoke up. He said he wasn't going to ask why Jin Woo was hiding all this power. One thing was for sure: the only reason they all made it out alive was because of him. So he straight up thanked Jin Woo for saving his entire squad. And just like that, the whole crew bowed their heads in gratitude. Jin Woo suddenly remembered, oh yeah, he still had to return that healer's journal. Meanwhile, Cha really wanted to talk to him, but the mage cut in like, Vice Captain, why are you holding a pickaxe? Cha instantly turned bright red and nervously asked Jin Woo, do I look weird with this? Meanwhile, back at the Hunters Guild HQ, Chairman Choi let out a deep sigh of relief. It all worked out in the end. First, Jin Woo saved White Tiger, and now he saved them. And Choi still couldn't wrap his head around just how much power this kid had been hiding. He asked his assistant, "Who do you think's stronger, him or me?" And the assistant just hit him with, "Sir, do you really think you could solo an A-rank dungeon like that?" Even Choi had to admit, not a chance. So now, they had one mission. Do whatever it takes to recruit that kid. Later, at a cafe, Jin Woo met up with a little Heir and asked, "So, how'd the negotiations with your dad go?" And Jin-Ho had to convince him to join the guild if he wanted to be the leader. Meanwhile, at the rank evaluation building, a swarm of reporters was waiting to interview some dude named Lee Min-sung. And this guy? Already flexing hard about becoming an A-rank, but he has no idea what's coming for him. Out of nowhere, reporters freaked out because Baek and Choi had shown up, demanding to know what kind of disaster was going down. One of them even asked if those two were there to recruit Lee Min-sung too, but they had no clue who that clown was. The reporters were totally disappointed, thinking they'd score an epic exclusive. Big Tiger started laughing at Four Eyes because they'd also been helped by Jin Woo, but Choi retorted that he didn't even come close to the White Tiger's red portal. He even lost a rank A recruit along the way. Still, without our boy, their Group B would have been wiped out. The two were almost about to go to war over who'd get to keep the main man. Then, out of nowhere, a bushy-haired dude popped up asking if they were fighting over Min-sung. That guy was Lim Tae-gyu, the rank S hunter and head honcho of the Reapers Guild. But the pair yelled right in his face that they couldn't care less about that dork, until young Jin Woo arrived and wondered what kind of anthill these photographers had crawled out of. I thought the news had already spread, but apparently nobody was drooling over, except for one hulking brute who blocked his way when he tried to enter the assessment building. Jin Woo said he had business with the guild, but the guy couldn't care less and told him to scram immediately. Then, out of nowhere, none other than President Go shows up, demanding to know with what authority that bodyguard was trying to kick him out. He explained that the guy was his guest and told the so-called Lee Min-sung not to forget who gave him permission to hold a conference there. So the two went in and our kid got all heated, asking how they could mess up his debut like that. He tried to enter the guild building, but Inspector Chul stepped in, saying he couldn't come in because another hunter was already being evaluated, which made the kid panic and demand, "Who do you think you are? Is that hunter so important?" The inspector, with a menacing vibe, shot back, "If I told you, could you handle the consequences?" Of course. After that, the kid was trembling. Back at the guild, the president announced that those two had arrived an hour early, waiting for Jin Woo, since he's the first rank S hunter in 2 years. Before the evaluation, some nerd asked about Jin Woo's skills to determine his class. He boasted he could do stuff like that, and even a little shadow trick left the nerds stunned. But the president, no dummy himself, asked if that was all he could do. The protagonist replied that plenty of people have seen his moves, so he doesn't need to hide anymore. And then everyone was truly amazed, because Jin Woo summoned his top generals and even claimed he could call in another 100. Baek even asked if that monstrous energy was coming from Jin Woo, saying it didn't compare to the first time he saw him, and now he could obliterate the entire White Tiger Guild in the blink of an eye. After securing his rank S hunter license, Big Tiger went to ask if the guy had a minute for a chat. The kid said he had something to handle and tried to sneak out, but both of them warned he wasn't leaving through that door. Jin Woo figured they meant they'd prepared a contract so massive he'd regret not listening. But it turned out there were 300 paparazzi filming him. At Jin-Ho's school, she couldn't believe it. Why was her brother on TV? 10 minutes earlier, that idiot had given a speech in jutsu, claiming he'd fight monsters to protect everyone, even if he ended up in a low rank. But obviously he was lying, because he already knew he'd dropped to rank A. So he was only going to work as a hunter for 2 years to earn a fortune and then vanish. Then the reporters, drooling over him, started getting calls announcing that the 10th rank S hunter had been revealed. And it took only 5 seconds for everyone to forget about that Lee Min-sung character and rush off to interview the new rank S. Meanwhile, the head honcho of the mining crew was watching the news, wondering why Mr. Sung was on TV. That big mouth guy went nuts, demanding to know what crime he'd committed, and nearly had a heart attack when he found out that Jin Woo was now the new rank S hunter in Korea. Even Joo-hee and Mr. Song, who were busy training Chul, were glued to the news. Jin-Ho's dad announced that Jin Woo had been crowned a rank S mage, and then asked if the young heir managed to rope him into the guild. Jin Woo apologized, saying he couldn't manage it. He added that his buddy was hell-bent on starting his own guild, and even offered him a vice leader spot. His old man flashed a grin and explained he didn't set up the Yu-Jin guild just for cash. He's rolling in money, but to protect the crew. He declared that Jin Woo was approved to lead the Yu-Jin guild, giving a whole speech about counting on him to handle everything, and the young heir thanked him. But then he said he couldn't do that because he was joining his brother's guild, which his billionaire dad definitely didn't see coming. Back at the association, Little Jin Woo was confused why everyone was snapping pics of him instead of Little Star. Even Baek tried to act all smart, saying he'd help him get home. But in the blink of an eye, Jin Woo vanished, and then reappeared behind the reporters. Master Choi couldn't believe a mage could be that fast, and Tiger was fuming because his eyes couldn't even keep up. He then declared that the new Sung Jin Woo is definitely stronger than both. The kid Jin Woo strolled into a fancy gear shop to buy fireproof equipment and asked the owner if it was safe to stash such valuable items behind just a pane of glass. The Four Eyes guy, all cocky, said that glass could take a punch from a rank A hunter. If Jin Woo could break a pane, he'd get all the loot. Just a light tap from him had the dude shaking in his boots, mumbling he was only messing around. But he was clearly freaked out because that one tap nearly shattered the glass. Jin Woo then asked the price of a dagger and was shocked to learn it was 30 million, even though it was weaker than the blue Kasaka dagger. When he asked about the dagger he'd bought from the system store, he almost lost it when the guy said it cost 100 million. Later that night, Baek was deep in thought, saying with his tiger-like vision, he was sure Jin Woo was weaker than him in that red portal incident. But now, our kid's having a field day at his place. He and his sister barely get a minute of peace because reporters had even pitched a tent outside his house just to interview the kid. Suddenly, someone rings the doorbell and he opens it with blood in his eyes, but it's just the little Heir camping at his place. After the two crash, our protagonist sneaks out, warning that someone might tail his sister while he's gone. So he plants a superior orc in her shadow as a guard and scatters extra shadow clones around the neighborhood, playing Dark Knight Vigilante. Then he grabs a lift with Jin-Ho to the demon castle. This time he's way stronger than before. But now he's been handed an even tougher mission: defeat the demon monarch. There were some goat suckers roaming about, so he decided to leave that greed orb with Tusk. If the beast was already strong before, imagine now that his powers doubled. He hurled a wicked fireball that obliterated not only that titan, but everything in its path. Meanwhile, Jin-Ho's dad ended up in the hospital, sleeping for 2 whole days, with the doc saying he might have eternal sleep syndrome, the same disease that took Jin Woo's mom. Now things really hit rock bottom, boss. Back in Japan, 2 hunters spotted a giant flying ant. At the demon castle, Jin Woo's shadow storage capacity had skyrocketed, and he lamented that if he could extract demon shadow, he'd have an enormous army. So he split his soldiers into 6 teams to speed things up, ordering them to wipe out any enemy they see and shout out when they find the next floor access permit. Soon he realized his mana was draining way too fast and discovered some cranky knights were even taking out their own general. Then it was time for Daddy to step in. One knight noticed his presence and charged at him, but Jin Woo dodged every blow and sent him packing. 2 others tried to sneak up from behind but were sliced to ribbons. The knight's captain even wondered aloud if monsters feel fear too, and now he was certain they do. Dude, that episode was absolutely wild. Our kid Jin Woo is about to get stronger than any living being that's ever walked the earth. If you dug this video, you're gonna love the next one that's coming up on your screen. I'm out. Later.